do 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 do. Wait for YouTube to catch up. What's up, everybody? It's another Tuesday live stream. My window is freaking out. So yeah, let's talk a couple things, and we'll talk giveaway. So first off, I know this has nothing to do with fish, but the question is in chat. So, I'll answer. For the big football game, so that the NFL doesn't try to, sue me or some nonsense. Buccaneers or Chiefs? I feel like I have a good answer. I dislike Tom Brady still playing. Guy's been playing forever. He's got enough. I want him to win one more time, so maybe he'll go away. I want to see other quarterbacks. You know what I'm saying? Of course, I love my team's quarterback, but I just want to see other players play, and not the same stupid guy who's been in basically every other Super Bowl his whole career. I just want him to go away. I actually really wanted the Browns just because, or the Washington football team, because it would have been kind of almost a meme at that point. But regardless, here's where we stand. So, let's talk some fish stuff. First off, there was a question very early in chat, in regards to, and I want to actually talk about this. The masked shrimp die-off, you had worms. Most likely those are just detritus worms of some form. I really wouldn't worry too much about them. They're really common. They shouldn't be harmful. I wouldn't stress. So, we're going to talk about these guys. So, I've put some stuff on Instagram for these. This is some Super Red Bristlenose. They're short fin. They're not the long fin variety. I was actually given a big group of these, and by big I mean quite a lot of fish, from my friend John. And let me tell you the story and why this matters. Okay, John is the son of Leanne, and Leanne and John often watch the channel. Leanne is who I got the Blue Hawaiian Moscow guppies from. So she's the gal who, bless her heart, she's an absolute sweetheart, that had been buying the fish directly from Luke Roebuck, and that's who I got my colony from. And I've slowly been growing that colony over time, and they have the big guppy mansion, of course. And then slowly but surely, I've been releasing those fish to the public through one of two ways. Originally, I tried shipping some fish. My work schedule got really crazy, so now I do them through Redfish Bluefish with Jason, my good friend. So that's kind of the fun part about this is that those plecos come from the same family that I got my guppies from. So I've kept a number of them. They're all very, very healthy, and I'll be breeding those ones out. So I think I kept 16. I kept a lot. He gave me a lot of fish. And then I took the rest to Redfish Bluefish. So those should be, I think, available now on his website. So if you want some Super Red short fins, we purposely did our best because they're actually big fish. They're not like little 1-inch babies. They're all about 2 to 2.5 inches. Really thick, really healthy. You can't sex them quite yet, so a pair just means 2 by number. I can't guarantee it's a male and female, but we're going to give away 2 tonight. One person is going to win 2. And then that's all from me. I brought the fish in. I'm paying all the shipping, all that stuff. Just Jason is being very, very awesome and doing the shipping work for me. So a little bit sponsored by Redfish Bluefish in a sense, but not directly. I'm paying all the costs are coming out of my pocket on this one. But last week we did the C102 plecos, or not plecos, corydoras. Why would a C number be a pleco? And then I think we had a discussion over the weekend when I went there to drop off fish and to talk about a few things for the future and just stuff with his business, asking how he's doing. We discussed a couple other potential giveaways, so be ready for those. I think we're going to do them all via streams. So, yeah. So this when we do give these away, and I'll give the keyword a little bit later. Again, reminder for those that were here last week, I've purposely put an anti-spam filter on, so if you enter it more than once, the keyword, you get disqualified. So don't do that. Okay? I'll tell you in a little bit. It'll be pretty obvious, but yeah. Whoa. I'm not sure. Is it Paul, etc., or is it Paulette C? But regardless, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Happy to help. Like, again, super chats are totally not necessarily on my channel. I'm one of those people who I actually kind of purposely screw my income on YouTube because I have a good career and I enjoy what I do. I enjoy this. I enjoy my actual job. So it's kind of one of those things. This is my fun time. Regardless. So, little cool story. Working with Jason a little bit over at Redfish Bluefish some more to make sure that I can kind of get some more fish. By the way, some more blue Hawaiian Moscow guppies went his way. Not a lot. Just only a few. We didn't want to take too many. But I know that he put a temporary pause on shipping just because some of the stuff that's going on in the United States, as you guys know, political nonsense. We just don't want to risk any potential issues with fish health. Gee, mini Christmas. I can speak English, I promise. Had a long day at work. But so we're setting stuff up to make sure that fish stay really cheap to people and affordable, at least for the stuff that we can. So long term, I'll be breeding Super Red Plecos and occasionally taking them to Jason. I know that he hasn't told me who, but I have a personal guess. He's talking with another Pleco person that's in the Seattle area to get some fish from that person kind of start going potentially. And that sounds pretty sweet. If my guess is right, then I know what fish it is. And that's a fish that barely anybody in the United States has, and that is ultra cool. So yeah, just some cool stuff. We'll be giving away plecos tonight. We might be doing some more giveaways later. I will take these beautiful, beautiful fish off my screen. And just in case you're curious, they come from a pretty well-known line. They're very healthy fish. They have good color. They have that nice orangey red color when they're not stressed. So yeah, be prepared for those. One winner will get them. It does have to be, you have to be in the United States. We can only ship within the United States for fish. And there's there's a little caveat too. We can't really, it's difficult to ship to Hawaii because of Hawaii's requirements. So yeah. Are you giving it away in chat? I see you, fellow Team Bentley member. I see you. That's my guess. I'm guessing it's you. He wouldn't spill the beans, but So we'll talk some question and answer. For those who are present, I'll do it now. To enter the giveaway, just pay attention to chat. That's going to come up. Remember, only do it once. Just once. And we'll draw that a little later. You have a chance to win some fish. I actually did. I want to say one thing. There's a comment I received for those of you who saw my silly my silly community tab post. Some of you were laughing at it. Some of you just like commented generically and ignored my dumb test of the greater YouTube algorithm gods. Uh, but there was a comment there about not giving away fish. And I kind of want to address that only because, and my response got a thumbs up from the person, so I think they were satisfied with what I had to say. But it was that fear that, like, it's kind of like getting a goldfish at a carnival, right? You don't necessarily know that the person who wins can properly take care of the fish. And my response to this was really simple. It's like, this isn't like a carnival where it's random people. We know that everyone here is a fish person, right? And not everybody, we have very wide differences in our experience and knowledge base, but in the end, everybody here keeps fish. This isn't somebody who's like, little Timmy who wins that goldfish, and the parents are scrambling, going, "Oh my, how do we take care of this fish?" Right? So that was kind of my response. It's like, it's all aquarists. So I think we're a little safer giving away fish. If this was something like I went to a random event somewhere, I would be more inclined to like give away equipment as opposed to fish, or maybe other items like stickers and things like, your kind of tchotchkes, your merchandise, right? But no one's going to watch this stream who isn't a fish person. You're not going to have a person who's like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get video game content as this guy talks about fish, right? I mean, I've talked about video game stuff only because I've worked in that industry. I've worked on a video game fairly recently, things like that. But yeah, just kind of one of those things. I thought it was funny, and Chad is like going, "Come on, we're all fish nerds." Chad, I love you. I just want you to know, you guys are great. Okay. Ooh, I don't want to make sure I don't miss this. So from Tim Carter, we'll go into full question and answers now. By the way. I started a 125-gallon planted tank. Nice. I love big tanks. Will Boesemani rainbows, bristlenoses, corydoras, and Siamese algae eaters all work together? Yes. So my suggestion, Tim, for you is this. Make sure in the case of your corydoras and stuff like that, have a good bottom sinking food, like the bottom wafers from Extreme are a great example, that is kind of big, because those bottom feeding fish can basically rasp at it where rainbows don't. And so what I do when I feed tanks that have both rainbows and cories is I will feed a food specifically for the rainbows first and get them distracted, and then I'll throw in the food for my corydoras or my plecos in the case where I have tanks with rainbows and plecos. That way the rainbows are distracted with all the food at the top water, and they ignore all the stuff that sinks really fast, and you're fine. But you can also do stuff like green beans, zucchini, especially for those bristlenoses. That's going to make them super happy. Your Siamese algae eaters will eat that too, as will some of the corydoras. They'll kind of try all sorts of stuff. So just do that kind of thing. Make sure that you're conscious of how you're feeding. Don't expect to just feed only flake and have that work for all the fish, right? Because the rainbows will eat a ton of it, and they act like they have bottomless stomachs. They'll just eat and eat and eat and eat, and you'll be praying basically that enough hits the bottom, and you run the risk of really overfeeding your tank in order to get that food down to those lower fish. So just be prepared, kind of feed in that fashion. You should be just fine. Boesemani, they get along with everything. If you can, for the SAEs, my suggestion, try to find reticulated Siamese algae eaters. I talk about these guys all the time. They stay smaller than full-size, your standard Siamese algae eater, if you will. And more importantly, even at adulthood, they continuously look for algae to eat, where adults, regular Siamese algae eaters, tend to get very slacker and will only look for protein because they're trying to prepare to breed. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, sounds like a great tank. I would like that kind of tank. It's 125 gallon. I would be in. Just make sure there's a question about this, and I'll answer this question at the same time. Avoid Amazon swords with plecos. And this is almost every pleco, but especially with any of the vegetable eating plecos, they love sword plants. They will just eat those all day long. So if you put vegetable eating plecos in with your sword plants, just expect them to get massacred. It's really common. Sometimes they don't, but it's the common occurrence is they will eat sword plants like crazy. And yeah, and again, you could look at you know, because you already have plecos, maybe you don't need SAEs, maybe you use autosynclus. I think the mixture is fine. I think you can even add autosynclus to that mixture. Just make sure that you have enough proper food for each of those different algae feeding type fish. Alyssa has a great comment. It's fine to have swords with your bristlenoses if you care more about your bristlenoses. Okay, you care more about your fish than those plants. It's great. It's a food source. It won't be there for very long, but it's a food source. Okay, I'm going to jump up and chat a touch. I want to get some questions, and we will fly through this bad boy. There is the spam for the giveaway. Make sure you're entered. Again, everything's free. Fish, shipping, the whole shebang inside the United States, courtesy of me. But my friend Jason at Redfish Bluefish will actually do the shipping to you, so you'll be put in contact with him in order to claim your prize if you win. Gary Duncan, could you please give me your thoughts on the Fluval Aquasky 2.0 compared to the Fluval 3.0, aka the Plant Light? I think they use the same phone app. Thank you. So yeah, they do use the same Fluval Smart app. So the Aquasky is kind of like a more budget-friendly version of the 3.0. So it doesn't have as much range. It's only red, blue, white, and then green, as opposed to the 3 different whites, pink and blue. Okay? In general, I think it's a fine light for some of your shallower tanks. Anything like, say, 17 inches and shorter. Now, I personally have not, like, dove in really deep testing it. I'm trying to get Fluval to send me one. But I don't want to push because my contact at Fluval is very, very nice to me whenever I talk to him. So I don't want to push him too much, right? Because I like that back and forth that we have. It's nice. They're very lovely folks when they are willing to do stuff. But because I don't have a deep dive, I can't, like, give you a guaranteed setting. And I get tons of questions on the Aquasky because lots of people will buy the Aquasky because, like, an example would be Petco carries the Aquasky, but they don't carry the plant typically. So a lot of your big box stores carry the Aquasky because it's a little more budget friendly. But the in-depth part of stuff that I've done is on the plant because I do heavily planted tanks. I want that better, quotation marks around that, better light, but just more, it has more bands of stuff. And there is a light spectrum video that I'm going to be working on very shortly that will kind of explain why I put, like, quotation marks around the word better. Like, to me, it is a better light, but better is subjective. If you're running nothing but 20 longs and shallow tanks, you don't need a Fluval 3.0. It's arguably too powerful. You could do very, very well with even something like a Phoenix Stingray. However, there's a lot of advantages to the Fluval plant and the Aquasky that something like a Phoenix Stingray doesn't have. So I'll have some more content about that kind of stuff soon. I'm hoping I can get an Aquasky out of Fluval. If not, eventually I might find a used one on, like, Craigslist or something and just buy it. I'm trying to avoid that because I don't want to buy a light that I'm only going to use long enough to test and then I'm going to get rid of. Because I like using my limited fish budget. Again, I, like, purposely murder my income on YouTube because I hate when YouTube throws too many advertisements at people. So I like using that income toward things that I think are more relevant long-term projects. Although I get enough questions on the Aquasky at this point, it probably is relevant at this point to help people. So yeah, we'll get to that. But yeah, it's a great light. Like, don't get me wrong, Fluval makes good lights. Their engineering is very, very smart. And they're getting better now that they're getting away from the previous iteration where they had that weird, like, Wi-Fi adapter add-on you had to buy in order to get all the control. So now that you have like the Flugel Smart app, for those that are willing to, I've had a couple people who don't want to have an app. That's fine, but for those who are willing to use it, it's a ton of control for a lot of benefit for very, very little difference in cost compared to certain things. Okay, just want a little shout out. Desertfish, welcome, man, to Autosynclus. I might be doing some like crazy nonsense with all the member stuff here soon. I'm trying to figure out a good cadence to do more for members. Part of it's my work schedule. Like I think I mentioned this over the like Christmas and New Year. There's this plan put in place where basically my team that I lead picked up 50% more work with zero increase in staff. So if my work wasn't bad enough before, it just got worse. And that's like been in place all of this month, basically. So I've been a little stressed as we're coping, but we're kind of getting in the groove of things now, so that's good. So, dealing with stuff. Rescue dog treats. What peaceful fish can I keep a guppy colony in check? Too many guppies. Ooh. All right, so this is a touchy subject. So if you're trying to keep a fish in with the guppy colony itself to keep guppies in check, which is mostly to predate on some of the babies, but not all, so that you continuously have a colony, but it just doesn't explode on you, that gets really difficult. Like, full-size SAEs will eat guppy fry. I've watched it happen and then almost immediately, like, fished them out of my tank because I, of course, want the most ridiculous colony I can get because I'm a psycho. As dogs freak out. All right. Some angelfish, some of the bigger angelfish will eat fry size but leave guppies alone. The risk that you run into is that a lot of our guppies have those big, long tails, right? And the difference between eating a fry and nipping fins becomes very, very small with a lot of those predatory fish. So usually what we're looking at doing is having some outlet to put our fish, our excess fry, in a different tank. And that requires some management. Now, me personally, I would say that my way to keep a guppy colony in check is to work with a local fish store. And try to get it so that if you have even a mutt guppy tank, like just bring in assorted guppies. They're a very common seller. They sell all the time. If you can get just a tiny bit of store credit and buy some of your fish food that way, deal, right? Because now you can, in theory, save yourself some money on fish food, keep those fish fed, and every once in a while you just take in a bucket of guppies, right? I had this deal for a while with the Aquarium Co-op. I would bring in, when I had an Endler tank, I would bring in just basic generic Endlers by the hundreds I did it like twice, where, I would bring in until I was like, yeah, I finally want to get rid of the rest of the colony. And every few months I would bring in a couple hundred Endlers in a bucket, and, I'd get a little bit of credit, and basically I would just buy my food. I'd buy fish food with it. And I'd buy enough of a supply of fish food to cover a reasonable amount of my fish for a couple months. By doing that, right? It saved me on some cost. This was like much earlier, before I got as busy as I am with work, and basically just trying to do my generic upkeep became the majority of my time. But yeah, I think that you can do things like some of the slightly larger, potentially gourami, or some of the dwarf cichlids could be something that will keep the babies in check. But it's really tough to do that without like running the risk of, in the same tank, either over predating on the colony and becoming very, very aggressive because they realize they have this continuous food source and they get more and more aggressive and they ignore any other food. They only predate on live fish. And me personally, I'm not a fan of that. But it's all to our personal morals when it comes to fish keeping. I'm a big softy. I don't like killing fish. Even my cull fish, I just move them to a different tank and let them live their lives. So that's how big a softie I am. Like, as you can imagine, I'm not going to get something to eat other fish on purpose. But it depends on your situation, right? And it could be something where, like, shoot me an email, we can talk a little bit more about it. But those are kind of my two avenues, right? I think if you have a separate tank with a fish that is more likely to do that, and every once in a while you're dumping some babies that way or something like that, that might be the safer route to not risk that overpredation. But if you're not as worried about overpredation, you can put it inside the tank. And then there's a host of options you could look at that are big enough mouths. It basically comes down to, once the mouth is big enough, if it fits in the mouth, it is food. And that's just like the rule of almost all fish. And lots of fish that we don't think of as predator fish will become predator fish if they can eat that thing. Like, even really large rainbows could, in theory, become predators on very small fry because they're too dumb to know better. They eat their own fry all the time, but their own fry are teeny, teeny, tiny. So it's kind of different in that case. Gotta get down. Again, for those who are around here, at Bentley Pasco, makes it much easier for me to see your questions and to answer them accordingly. Ooh, I like this one. Brian K., my fellow rainbow buddy. What is your feeding routine for plecos? So in this case, because I'm doing now Super Reds, and I have some green dragon longfins that there's just like 2 of them I randomly got dirt cheap at AGA, and then my Wobben boosters. Here's what I go through. I've kind of changed my regime recently, and a lot of that is just, I tried a new food. I really, really like it. I got some good advice from my friend Alyssa, because she knows far more about plecos than I do, and I've been putting that into practice. And it's really simple. So I do canned green beans, the no salt added, so the low sodium style. I like the French cut ones, so they're already like cut in half, right? It just makes it easier for baby plecos to eat them that way. I do green beans 2 to 3 times a week, depending on how busy I am in and out of my fish room. I try to do zucchini or squash, depending on the time of year when I have it. I will do that a couple times a week instead of green beans if I have that available to me. Like, I just ran out of my supply of zucchini, and I haven't had Costco restock. Costco has this great pack. It's like mini zucchinis with yellow squash in it. And I got, this was a tip from Alyssa as well, that literally you can just like cut in half, weigh them down, and they're perfect. I haven't had those at my local Costco for a while, so that's like, when it comes back in stock, that'll be like one of the first things I buy to feed my fish. I probably feed my fish almost better than I feed myself at times. As terrible as that sounds. And then I use a prepared food, so either I will use those extreme bottom wafers that I did a review on. I love those things. But the great tip there that I got from Alyssa is, don't feed those too much. Make sure you have a good mixture of greens with them. Otherwise, you can get kind of a bloat going on with your plecos, and it can cause some internal issues. Just because it's a little higher protein and stuff, right? So you want to have some good green stuff to push everything out. And then finally, my other food that I like to use is a mix, and I only do this mix because I like to add just a little extra touch of protein. I do Rapashi Soylent Green mixed with a very small amount of Spawn and Grow. So basically what I'll do is, like, if I'm putting in, say, a cup of the Soylent Green, that's a lot. I'm just trying to give you a rough measurement here. I will put in a tablespoon of the Spawn and Grow. So I just want a small amount, like basically 10% of it, to be Spawn and Grow for a little extra boosted protein to help the babies out. And that's my other thing that I like feeding. I'll feed that typically. I'll make a batch, and I'll feed that for a couple days, feed green beans, then feed the rest of it. Or feed zucchini instead of green beans. That's kind of like how I do. I alternate between prepared foods and actual vegetable matter, because I think it's just super healthy for all my vegetarian plecos. I don't have any meat-eating or wood-eating plecos right now. Eventually I will, and then, we can talk about feeding them eventually in like a video or something. Yeah. Hope that helps. If you get those, I generally suggest, like, green beans are dirt cheap. They're a great thing to feed your plecos. Just do it at like 2 to 3 times a week, maybe even more. Super, super healthy for your plecos. Ooh, and as chat jumps to tell me how far behind I am. Oh, cool. Rescue dog treats. I would never want to hurt the fish. I did sell a breeding colony to my local fish store yesterday, along with 70 bristlenose plecos. Made 180 bucks. Nice. That's more than I made selling fish to the local store. So you're doing better than I am. I do better with plants than I do selling fish, but that's mostly because I can't ship myself. So I do things in smaller amounts and make sure they're available to people at a good price. Stephen P. I've had Helferi tissue culture growing for over 6 weeks. It's grown very little, being under direct fluval 3 in a 40B with CO2. Any tips for better results? So Helferi, especially from a tissue culture, takes time to get happy. It's kind of a slow grower naturally. In my experience, which is not a ton, this is mostly from talking to friends that grow a lot of it. It does like a little boosted iron, but not too much. It generally prefers softer water. So if you're in harder water, it's going to have a slower growth process than if it's in soft water. But other than that, it's just a slow grower. Even though it's a pogostemon, it's nothing like actual pogostemons at all because it's such a different plant. And anything coming from tissue culture, there's usually like kind of a conversion period where that plant is really adjusting itself, and in Helferi it's even longer. There's some other plants that have really, really long kind of like conversion periods, if you will, but when they do get happy, you'll notice a difference. I wouldn't stress too much. As long as you see like proper color and you're slowly getting new growth, you're doing fine. Just don't stress about it like not growing amazingly fast. Okay. I'm trying to catch up. Amy 5 Quaddis. I'm raising 200 plus Super Reds right now. Hope my LFS will be interested. Side note, 30 of them ate all the RBA I had in a 75 gal. That doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me, man. Plecos will go through all sorts of stuff. Interesting. Alyssa's been ordering zucchini through Amazon Fresh. Nice. We got some other people optioning in their pleco diets, including like broccoli. I love broccoli too much. I would never share broccoli with plecos. Ooh, here's a great question from Jack. Nice and simple with the name. What is your favorite plant you use when breeding guppies? So in general, I have found the most success in my guppy mansion and a couple other guppy tanks that I've done having Java fern. Preferably the needle leaf or Wendelob versions. And part of that is because it creates a really dense network of leafage, if you grow it out over time, for the fry to hide in. So even if you have fairly peaceful parents, those fry still like to take cover and hide. It's a part of nature, right? It's just what their instinct tells them to do. And in Java fern, it's really easy to attach it to all sorts of stuff. You can attach it to pretty much anything. It has very, very low requirements, so you don't have to have high light or crazy fertilization. The big thing is just they like a little bit more potassium than your average plant does. But they create a nice, dense area for those fish to hide in. And that helps you get higher and higher survival rates in your fry, especially if your intent is to do something like breeding for profit. Now, the other option, of course, is something like guppy grass. I personally don't like guppy grass because it takes over like a whole tank, where like Java fern I can control, right? I can control Java fern very, very easily. When guppy grass starts taking off, you just have to like rip it out in huge chunks out of your tank. So it's kind of annoying, but I think the Java fern is much easier. Also, if you decide to ever sell your Java fern, it's a much higher demand plant than guppy grass. It's a lot easier to sell it off. Just my 2 cents. Chat, stop jumping on me. Try to read a question and it immediately jumps. That means I'm really far behind, so I'll try to catch up. And pretty soon we'll give those fish away. So just a reminder, if you haven't entered yet, that's the hashtag Super Red will get you entered. I'm just going to take a little peek, make sure we got a good number of people. Oh yeah, plenty of you guys are entered. Fantastic. Don't spam it, it'll disqualify you. Just a reminder. Quirky Lemon, little update on your Dwarf Aquarium Lily. Thank you. Shressa. I hope I pronounced that vaguely right. That sounds like I slurred a little bit, but that's exhaustion. I have a clown pleco. I don't know how to make him feed. Tried zucchini, wafers, fluval pleco sticks. He just doesn't come near me, and I don't know how he is still alive. So keep in mind, most of your plecos are like nocturnal scavengers. They eat in the middle of the night. They don't like... Bristlenose are kind of a rare, and some of the rubber lips are like a little more confident fish. They'll kind of come out to you, but a majority of those fish hide, and they hide a lot. So I wouldn't worry too much. Like if you're throwing in green beans, just watch the food. You'll notice if it's getting eaten at, you can tell the difference between just like the skins of a green bean versus all the internals, or like zucchini as it's getting eaten down versus just slowly eroding, if you will. It helps a lot to just like, I personally tend to put my food in for my plecos in the evening as the lights are going completely off, or when they're off entirely. I want to encourage my plecos to like not be afraid to eat, and then I just check the next morning and I can tell whether or not they've eaten. Now most of that is because I have tanks that have lots of plecos in them on purpose. They're breeding or raising tanks, but I think the big thing is just don't expect that fish to come out when you put food in. It's kind of rare for them to do that. Some do. They get certain foods they really get attached to. If you haven't tried it yet, try Rapashi. It's just super good food. I think clown plecos are a vegetarian, so I would try the Soylent Green. I wouldn't try the Morning Wood, I think is the other one, the wood species version of it. I wouldn't try that. But just try some of those foods, and just remember, like, plecos are totally nocturnal fish. They're big shy fish. They're going to hide from you for the most part. So expect them to eat at night, not in the middle of the day. Bottom dollar Qualix. Bentley Pascal, would you like to sell the longfin green dragons? On a serious note, however, what size tank would you recommend for breeding longfin bristlenose plecos, and what size for a grow tank? So my green dragons, they're still kind of small, and they're not huge. They've been slow growing on me. I'm not power feeding them, so that's part of it, which I'm sure like Alyssa will shun me for. But I got them at AGA, and it's kind of, at this point, it's just become an experiment to find out, like, what do I got, I like them enough that I need to give them a better tank than what they're in, or just, because they're in a 29-gallon with the wild-caught rubro striata, and they're just kind of chilling in there, but I have, like, tons of work to do, basically, on that room of tanks, and that might necessitate me moving those fish to a different tank, just so that they get a little bit more TLC. But on a more serious note, I really like things like 40 breeders, the 30 breeder. I like a big footprint, so I have lots of room for caves. I don't need a very tall tank because plecos don't really care that much about it, and I like good water volume. It depends on the pleco. Like, you can keep them in a lot of different varieties of tanks, but in general, I would say for most of the bristlenose, I think 40 breeders are great. You can even do 20 longs if you only have like one pair. It's all about your personal water schedule, how much maintenance you want to do, how much filtration you want to put in there, all that kind of stuff. I'm sure you can get far better advice from other people, because, again, I'm not a super pleco wizard, but I can basically, like, not be a complete idiot when it comes to bristlonoses and still get spawns and raise them up. But, which is what I've been doing with my Wabamooster. I just kind of like let them do their thing, and they do what fish do, and I get baby fish, and I'm happy about that. All right, let's see. I think we can give away some fish. And again, if I miss your question, don't be afraid to repost the question. The anti-spam filter shouldn't stop that. Just don't, like, spam the keyword for entering. So we'll give folks like 2 more minutes, and then we're going to do the giveaway. Mickey M. Bentley and everyone. How common/rare is the Millennium Rainbowfish, Glossolepis pseudo-incisus, in the U.S.? Is it very closely related to true incisus? So they're not super rare. An example would be that one of the bigger sellers of rainbows online is Imperial Tropicals, and they breed them like crazy. The thing that makes them a little more interesting is that they're not carried by like every distributor, and they're a different color. So with pseudo-incisus versus incisus, you have metallic versus more flat coloration. In the Millennium Red, you're going to get more of a bright red color, where in the regular incisus, the Irian or Red Rainbow, they got like a million different names. I've seen some people call them just like the New Guinea Red, which is a terrible common name, but whatever. I can't change how people do stuff, right? Those tend to have a mixture of color between like that bright red and a more rusty, almost purple red, depending on how the fish is doing, right? And I think if you want that bright red fish, you want the Millennium Rainbow, the pseudo-incisus. Now, the big thing is they haven't been in the U.S. as long as the regular incisus, but more and more of them are getting bred. They're becoming more common. You've also got the albino variety of them, which is kind of an orangey red as opposed to red. I think they're a great fish. It's just a matter of which coloration and whether you want that flatter color or that more metallic color for yourself. It's really what it comes down to. Fish Tank Barn. Pleco shipping fun. Thanks, buddy. You don't have to do that. You guys, like, this channel does plenty well, even though I intentionally tank it. In order to do little giveaways every once in a while. It's just something I like doing. Like, I'm in a very fortunate position, especially during human malware. So my ability to like give a little bit back here and there, feels good. Feels nice. You know what I'm saying? And then Danicoon Aquatics, we have our first fry from the Blue Hawaiian Moscows. Love them. Thanks. I'm glad you have them. I'm glad because you guys do phenomenal stuff with fish. Danny and Ken. Or Ken E, my friend. I really just hope that like at some time soon we can see each other again, because it was an absolute blast to meet you guys at AGA. And man, I hate to go on like a side tangent, because I know like I get really long-winded on questions and I'm missing enough as is, but I just miss the ability to be in person at like my fish club or an event, what have you, and talk fish with people. I think that's the one thing that has me like stir crazy about the whole of human malware and the lockdowns in my state. It's just I can't go out and babble about fish with a group of people. Like, I can go see a couple select friends, and as long as we're like being really, really careful, like when I went out to redfish, bluefish, we're wearing masks, we're staying distanced, you know, we've got a whole store. There's only 2 of us in there because he's not letting anybody in, right? So we're all staying distance the whole time, and we're basically at like tanks at the opposite side of a room talking to each other about fish. Then it's like, oh, you need to come look at this one that I've got in that they're already sold out, but you should look at this fish in person. They're finally coloring up better. And it's like, okay, wait a minute, I need to move. You know, like him move, and we're doing this dumb dance around his store. It's just so silly, right? But we need to, right? It's being safe. Have to be safe. You know, I wouldn't want to risk getting anyone at my work sick or my significant other sick or any of that nonsense, right? It's just, this thing's scary, but golly, do I miss just chatting fish with people in person. I mean, you guys know I talk enough as is here. You imagine how bad I am in person. Oh, hey, Leanne is in chat. The one, the only. So Leanne, good to see you, my friend. Hopefully John's with you, but those are the people. That's where my guppies came from, was Leanne. Those are her babies. They're still her babies to this day. And I'll make sure they get their little appearance. I got to do something with them soon. Got to let Leanne see her babies. It's a promise I made a long time ago. And despite like having way more like things on my like schedule of videos to do, got to do it. Got to keep strong with that. Plus, I love shooting that tank. All right. Jack, do you think a full-sized angelfish would be able to eat a medium-sized rummy nose? No. Rummy nose are way, way fast. Also, good sized rummy nose, a lot bigger than it. Angels have kind of small mouths, even big angels. A lot like rainbowfish, where their mouths are quite a lot smaller, so a lot less risk there. Carson Bainbridge, what are your thoughts on golden algae eaters? So you're talking like the Chinese algae eater? Because they're kind of a golden color. If that's the same fish, because I'll look it up. I just want to make sure, because that common name is not typically what I know. Oh yeah, Chinese algae. Oh no. I will never keep that fish. That fish is super aggressive. If adult SAEs are occasionally an aggressive fish, the Chinese algae eater or the golden algae eater is way worse. That's a fish that's going to pick eyeballs out of other fish, even fish that are big. So nope. I'll never keep that fish. They're jerks. But if you like them, that's your jam. That's your jam. I have my opinion, you have yours, right? That's part of the beauty of keeping fish. We all like different stuff. And then we get together and talk about why we like that different stuff. It's great. Sci-Fi Swordsman, such a good name. So, a bit of confusion, happiness for me here. I have an anubias that is flowering and an Amazon sword that is putting out a spike, but they are in tanks that have been neglecting a bit. Well, those plants are surprisingly both low demand. Like, really, anubias and Amazon swords like low light at long exposures. And there are certain times of years where they'll just naturally flower on their own. And we're sort of getting towards spring, kind of. So you will see it. They'll just, when they're happy, they do that. And that's usually a sign of a healthy plant. Especially in the case of the anubias, if you're getting flowers, healthy, happy plant. Keep neglecting it just the right amount, apparently, because what you're doing apparently is right. Jerry, do you have any suggestions for preventing anubias melt? I can keep most plants, but for some reason my anubias melts 90% of the time. I want it in my medium tech 60 with a fluval 3.0. Ooh, man. So, other than when you start seeing melt on anubias, and let me ask you this, are you seeing melt on the rhizome or just losing the leaves? Because if you're losing the leaves, they will recover. Just clip those leaves off, and they'll grow new leaves. But if you're losing the rhizome, there's a way to kind of properly amputate the melt away and save the rhizome. And it's a little difficult, I will warn you. But basically, what you want to get is a brand new razor blade. Because a lot of times when you use scissors on the those big, thick rhizomes that anubias has, you're not such a thin and sharp blade that you're now applying crushing force. With a razor blade, it's such a thin, very sharp blade that it just cuts cleanly. But most of our scissors, even plant scissors, they're wide enough to where they apply a certain amount of crushing force in order to start cutting in. They don't really properly cut. And that crushing force, I have found, and some people that are far better with anubias than I am, they're like, anubias is their jam, right? That and boost are their plants, their go-to plants, and these guys are super gurus in these plants. They have also observed this, that when you start applying that crushing force in order to divide a rhizome, you are more likely to encounter that rhizome rot or rhizome melt, or to keep it continuing in the plant. There's something to do with how pressure applies to the rhizome that causes that process to continue, rather than cutting it cleanly off and removing it, kind of like how you would amputate. It's kind of disturbing to think about, but like amputating limbs with gangrene, right? You're trying to cut the problem away. Now, if you keep seeing this, there's a couple of different things. We might want to look at our like overall hardness of our tank, so like general hardness and carbonate hardness, because they can take reasonable amounts of hardness, but if you have very, very soft, very little in your water, there's actually a risk that there's not enough in the water to keep the anubias happy. Anubias in general comes from Africa for the most part. Some of it comes from other regions, but for the most part, it comes from areas that naturally have harder water and more mineral content in the water. So if we don't have enough mineral content, that plant is not going to be happy. even if you're giving it CO2 and good light or shaded light, which is what anubias actually really likes, is shaded light. It loves having something like a big bulbitis or java fern over it, shading those leaves. That helps prevent a lot of the algae problems that happens on anubias. You can have all the perfect situation, but you can have super soft water that doesn't have very much mineral content in it, and eventually it starts consuming its own minerals in order to try and survive, and it causes that melt, right? Where it's withering that part of the plant away because it's consuming it, trying to keep up. The third issue we can run into is if we have lots of high nitrate consuming plants, you're like rotalas and stuff like that, versus this very low demand plant, anubias. These plants are so out-competing that anubias, it's literally starving the anubias out. And the way that we resolve that is that we start adding additional nutrients, more than we think we actually need. We're kind of ensuring that we have an excess in nutrients, trying to hit that like 20 to potentially even 40 ppm, although really we want to target like 20 ppm of nitrates in the water when we test it. And adding some additional, like you could use like Flourish Trace or Flourish Advance, some of the things that help with like the root growth and stuff like that, and some of those micronutrients as opposed to the macronutrients, which if you have not seen it, my video that talks about the difference between micros and macros and how they help your plants, watch that. It's, to me, although it's not like some magically amazing edited video, it's one of my most informative videos I've ever done. But yeah, there's kind of like a spider web of different options that can potentially answer your problem. And it's about tinkering with things to figure out which problem you're running into and how to resolve it. I know that's a ton of information. That was a lot. So let's give some fish away. We got 2 new members. Susan from SLC Aquatics. What's up? And then Peplin Creek Aquatics. Deep down, I want Susan from SLC Aquatics to be like my adopted aunt. I love Susan. She's the best. She's just like the most amazing, positive person. Just putting that out there. Susan, I love you dearly. Keep doing what you do. All right, we're going to give away some fish. I hope you guys are ready. I'm not letting anybody else enter. I'm just going to roll this beautiful bean footage over here. We're going to find out what happens. I know this person is subscribed. I know this because I've been seeing this person forever. I'm going to put it in chat. Just because, you know, that's what you do. That's that YouTube thing, right? Casper Aquatics. What's up, buddy? You've won, too, a Super Red Bristlenose Plecos. Direct from me, through my friend John. So, shoot me an email, bentley.pasco@gmail.com. And then I'm going to put you in touch with Jason at Redfish Bluefish. We'll arrange all your shipping stuff and get those shipped out to you. Which, by the way, Jason showed me the whole of how he ships fish, because we've been talking, like a lot of you have been giving me feedback for those who have ordered through Redfish Bluefish about his shipping process. And I actually like watched how he packages everything, because he mocked package stuff for me. And man, that dude was going an extra mile I didn't know he was going, that I really appreciate, especially in cold weather. Very choice. I don't know too many people, although a Co-op just adopted something similar to help plants in cold weather. So good looking out. Co-op, Redfish Bluefish, doing the right thing, keeping stuff healthy and happy. Okay, I have a super chat I need to answer real fast, and then we'll keep going with the Q&A for about like 10 more minutes or so. I know that Dr. Black is coming up next. He's usually about 15 minutes after the hour, so we'll ramp down a little bit here soon. From Xanadu, COVID sucks. Thanks for the stream and info. I love the Fish Fam group. Hope to meet y'all sometime, somewhere, someday. Yeah, man, I'm in that boat. Sometime, somewhere, someday. Sooner would be nice, but being safe about it is far more important than the when. All right. Let's catch up to chat. Let's get some questions answered, because I know I'm behind. W. Marriott. So this is about the anubias some more. So Bentley, do you not think that anubias rot, softening of the rhizome/stink, is a disease? In your experience, is it more a parameter? No. So there's a difference. There is. So we can there is proper anubias rot, which is some kind of disease. We're not really sure whether it's a fungus or what. Just science hasn't figured that out. But one thing that we've noticed is that there are, like, when you're trying to deal with anubias rot or other ways where, like, the plant is consuming itself, and it can kind of, when a plant is starved, it can trigger, honestly, a really bad process where it just continuously consumes itself unless we effectively amputate it to stop the process. So there's a difference in the two, but when we're running into issues where this anubias keeps dying off on us, we kind of need to take a wide spectrum of approaches and start basically pulling levers, if you will. And like, I'm going to try this. Okay, that didn't work. Now I got to try this one. We basically have to start narrowing down the cause, because there are some different issues, if you will, that we can have with our low demand plants in tanks, despite like giving them CO2 and good light. Those high demand tanks can suck so much away that those low demand plants can all of a sudden start to suffer. And there's a difference between the two. But what the combination that we're kind of talking about more is like when we're separating those plants, we're separating that melt or that rot in the case where we have actual anubias rot, is if we don't use the right tools to do that, we can actually just cause the issue to continue as opposed to cleanly remove it so that the plant has a higher chance to recover and survive. Hope that makes sense. Anubias is like, despite being a super simple plant, when you run into problems with anubias, it's a super complicated game on how to figure it out, and it just takes time. Apparently somebody was very, very sad that they did not win. It's like Candy's just like slamming the hammer out there. Candy, thank you so much. By the way, like, the number of people who like fawn their love for Candy in Corey's stream always makes me giggle. Like, half the time I'll be lurking in Corey's stream while I'm at work doing stuff, and I'll glance over to chat, and just in case I think there's a question I can answer when I'm taking like a mental break for a minute or two, and just like the love for Candy is always something that makes me just smile. Okay, couple questions I want to get to here. From Cancer Trade. Bentley. His packaging was amazing. My angels got lost in the mail and arrived in 74-degree Fahrenheit water in perfect health 4 days. 4 days after the expected arrival date at 74 degrees. Telling you, and you know, because you've unpackaged them, you know exactly what I'm talking about, how he kept those thermals in check in that package for all that time. And it's not a lot of people do it. Not even like, and we know I love Dan's fish. Not even Dan does that, right? To the level that Jason is going, it's unreal. And like, the cost is there. It costs him a bunch, but he cares. Just generically cares about making sure that it is right. Absolutely right, which is freaking fantastic. From Brad, thank you for the help this week with the questions and setup. Not a problem, Brad. I do my best when I can. I can't always like answer everything as fast as I'd like to, but that's life, right? That's life. Quirky Lemon, do you have an idea on how I can convince my parents to let me have more tanks? Oh, man. So, not really. I guess like my problem is like I came from a family that was pro fish to begin with, so, you know, getting more tanks in our house was kind of just a like, where's a good space for it that isn't of being obtrusive? Okay, that's fine, right? It was one of those things. You know, one of the things that I would look at is you could tell your parents, right? With more tanks, you have to do more work to ensure all your tanks are clean and healthy. The big thing about making sure your parents are okay with stuff is making sure all your tanks are clean and look nice, right? And if you need more time to do these things, you're less likely to be out doing things that could get you in trouble. This was like a thing that I did with my mom when I was a kid. She was really, really smart and knew that if she reinforced my love of video games when I was a kid, I was less likely to go out and cause trouble when I got older because I'd stay home and play video games. and I'd play video games with my friends instead of like trying to go drink or do whatever, all the stupid stuff your teenagers do, right? You can do the same thing with fish. Like this, I'm going to give you this advice I've given. It's totally tangented, but it applies to fish people too. I used to play Magic the Gathering a lot. I don't play it very much anymore, mostly because human malware makes it impossible to go see my friends in person, and that's an in-person activity for me. But I used to go to a game store like 2 times a week to see my friends and play Magic. And I remember some of the younger guys in the group, the guys who were in high school, every once in a while, like, they'd bring their girlfriend into the shop. And twice, I remember talking to him and just being nice, like, okay, how, you're into each other. What do you think about the fact that he comes to a game store full of nerds and plays Magic? I remember one guy was like, I don't understand why. And another one was like, well, I think it's cool. And I remember I was like, can I give you a piece of advice as an older guy to a young person? If you want to find someone who's never going to cheat on you, date a nerd. Because you know what? That person who loves fish, because this is where this applies, or that person who loves Magic, is going to go to a place that is mostly full of socially awkward, other nerdy people, and they're going to nerd out about their stuff instead of going to somewhere like a bar where we're already imbibing things that inhibit our good sense of doing things correctly, or be around other people who are maybe more likely to be looking for a new partner or something, right? There's a piece of advice I gave someone, I give it to people all the time, especially for younger gals who are out there. Date a nerd. They'll never cheat on you. Never, ever. They just, if they're happy and you support their nerd hobby, they're never leaving you. It's just never going to happen. Oh, man. You can tell, like, how I look at the world just by that statement alone. Whoa. Okay, we're getting close to done. I got a couple more questions I want to answer. Bill Coleman, welcome to Autosyncless. Thank you for becoming a member. And we got this super chat here from Supermotive. Kind of a cool name. I like it. Where can I buy good quality angelfish? Thank you, and keep doing what you're doing. Okay, so, I mean, we've been talking about him, but he's got a really specific strain of angelfish that are gorgeous, which is the Manakapurus. Redfish Bluefish has one particular line of angelfish. My brain is like, it's just messed up. That is fantastic. Beyond that, you can have some good resources on places like Aquabid. Me personally, I am kind of lucky in that I have lots of options in the Northwest, but I would look at, there's somebody who does, on Get Gills, who does good angels, and I can't remember who it is off the top of my head. My brain is like just out the window right now. Because it's not specifically Dan, although I think Dan does do some angels every once in a while. There was somebody in there who specifically had like a couple different strains of angelfish, and was kind of angelfish was one of their jams of what they bred that sold on Get Gills. And I'm sure chat's going to like instantly know what's going on and be like, Bentley, you dum-dum, how do you not remember this person? But, my brain can only handle so much. It's mostly full of nonsense about fish and video games and my job. It barely keeps up with the rest of the world. Let's see down here. Maybe. Okay, there we go. So there's one. So from John Cox, Tiffany White, who's in the Nashville area, does some angels. There's a lot of stuff, but yeah. Deborah Sanders, my daughter married an IT nerd. It's true, Bentley. I'm telling you, man, date nerds. Yeah, they're so reclusive they'll never leave you. Okay, so it's got deleted because it was spammed a little. Like, relax, man. I'll answer questions. Kashal? I'm probably pronouncing that horribly wrong. Any advice for overhead sump? I am going to make one today. Make sure you understand the flow rate for an overhead sump of your gravity draining, and match that flow rate with the pump that is pushing water up into the tank. Or know the level in which you can have backups. Also, in the case in which you're having a pump and should something happen to your backups, have some kind of like float valve switch or something that goes to a secondary pump and only turns on when the water level gets too high, so that you'll pump water back down into your aquarium or to some kind of drain for excess water. Other than that, not really. I mean, you're just doing a sump in reverse, basically, instead of minding that the intake of water is based on a gravity feed, because depending on the size of the tubing you're using, it only can do so many gallons per hour. You're just doing it in reverse. You're pumping water up into it and letting gravity drain it out, as opposed to having water drain by gravity down into the sump and pumping it manually back up into the tank. It's just, you're basically just reversing your input and output and the math behind it. That's it. In general, keep your, make sure that your drain plugs and all that stuff are fit at the right area, so you got room for equipment and all those usual things. But really, the difference is not that huge. It's just understanding the mentality of that switch, right? Real simple stuff. Real simple. Once you know how to do a sump below a tank, you can do a sump above a tank. I personally prefer them all below because I can hide them, but yeah. That's personal choice. Like, I would love, eventually, if I had like a huge tank, like, built like a plywood or something like that, I would love to have an above sump that was designed as a big like shower filter. So you had like faux rainfall coming into the tank at all times, just because I think it would be a neat effect. But other than that, yeah, it's really, really simple. All right, so we have Dr. Black coming up next. I'll try and grab one more question real fast that isn't laughing at my silly nonsense. Brad, Bentley, you mean you have a real job? Yeah, I'm a very busy job. Here we go. Raphael Swift, Bentley Pasco, what do you think about the green aqua method of remineralizing RO targeting a TDS of 120 in tank rather than measuring GH? They don't appear to be doing anything extra about KH. So keep in mind, they're injecting CO2 into every tank, and CO2 is going to provide some level of carbonate, right? It's not quite as good as like putting any of the other things at balance, but they're trying specifically to go very soft in their water, which they're using their substrate to help as a buffer system. So a lot of their carbonate buffering and their pH buffering comes from the substrate and what they're using in all the ADA products. With that being said, I personally don't do RO. Now, that is a lot because I live in an area with extremely soft water. I basically have RO coming out of my tap. And I prefer slightly harder water because I keep rainbowfish. So I like lazier methods where I don't need to remineralize water. I just use crushed coral very often. And in the future, that's probably going to change just based on some feedback I've had from some friends and stuff. But I think either method is fine. It just depends on the level of additional work you as a person want to do when it comes to equipment. Because it's equipment and time, and there's a difference between what your water's like. Like if you want softer water and you have extremely hard water, then that's probably the best method. RO, remineralize it back up. I personally like adding a little bit of KH, but not a lot. We're talking like 2 degrees of hardness, 3 degrees of hardness, just enough to get out of the danger zone of risking any kind of pH spike or crash. But it's not necessary at the rate in which you got to keep in mind, they have a showroom, right? They have to continuously water change. They're doing water changes far more often than we are. So the likelihood of them having crazy pH issues is extremely, extremely low. Where for those of us who maybe we only water change once a week, once every 2 weeks, we're more likely to run into those kind of crashes if we don't have additional carbonate hardness to buffer our pH for us. So I would look at it like that. You're not doing like showroom level maintenance. Maybe you want additional carbonate hardness just to play it safe. But if you want a water change like every other day, you could follow the green aqua method. It's all up to you, man. Depends on how much work you want to do. And yeah, I knew Casper Aquatics was here. Like normally I would ask in chat, but like that's somebody who's been around this channel forever. When I know you, I'll play it. I play it way more relaxed. Great question. We'll finish with this question here. The One Ring, opinion on Dr. Kevin Novak's plenum method plus only dosing iron and potassium. I don't know his method very well, so I can't comment on it. I'm happy to look into it. Shoot me an email. And just like link me the video where he talks about it if you know that specifically. I'd be happy to watch it and then respond back to you and let you know what I think. Or maybe even talk about it next time. Who knows? Mr. Fish, sir, this is going to be the question I'll answer. Do you have to change out crushed coral? No. It slowly dissolves. So over time, you just have to monitor how much crushed coral is left, and over time you might have to add more. In my case, because my water is so soft, I just put crushed coral in like one specific spot when I can, so I can watch as it's being used. And then I also tend to like using Wonder Shell in addition, because like every once in a while I'll just put Wonder Shell because it has a bunch of extra minerals and stuff like that, and it's just generically good for helping my fish out. It's a lazy man's method because I work too freaking much. It's really what it comes down to. But you know, it helps me make sure that everything's like tippy top with all my fish, and I'm less likely to encounter issues with my fish when I've done this over the course of the last couple of years. So that's it, guys. That's our show. Congrats again to Casper Aquatics. Thank you so much. There's a horde of people tonight that have like done stuff. 4 new members, which is crazy for my channel in general. Like I'll be lucky to get 1 usually, and a bunch of super chats. So thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. Next week, be watching out. We might give away some more fish. Jason and I have talked about a few things. You know, we might give away some cool stuff that normally you could not get for sale through him. So that might perk your interest because it involves me too. So just putting that out there. Some stuff we've talked. And of course, you know, we'll get back to some cool stuff pretty soon. Some videos just look out for. A couple more product reviews coming in. One that's going to talk about light spectrum and how it's used by plants. It's kind of a next Plants for Profit and understanding lighting video. A little more in-depth on that, just so that people understand better. Again, congrats to Casper Aquatics for winning the 2 Super Red Bristlenose Plecos. I hope you enjoy them. Like I've been having a blast with them. We sent a bunch to Jason. He's got a few that'll be available for sale for those that might be looking for a Super Red lately. There's also a few more of my guppies that went his way. So if you've been waiting, you might have a chance to snag some. Just a little heads up. Again, if you do happen to use his website, use code STAYAWESOME, all one word, in caps. It'll save you 10% off your fish. And yes, I do get a small commission for it. Technically. But regardless, give you a deal. Craig, it's coming. I literally have to peel the thing I have apart right now so that I can use parts of it dried out to show why I hate it. It's coming, I promise. I promise. It's on my agenda. I meant to do that work last weekend. I got super, super busy because I had to wait for 3 hours worth of ferries going to see Jason. Took that time away. So hopefully this weekend I will get tearing that thing apart and finishing what I need to do that video where you will hear me scream my brains out about the stupid sun. As always, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. It's been an absolute blast. We had a ton of people in tonight. It's been a ton of fun. I hope to see you all next week. Thank you so much for watching, and stay awesome. Good night, good night, good night.